We made it back one more time.
Oh, the standoff ended quick today.
It did. Back when I used to do a different podcast many years ago. I feel like when I did this podcast, it was like the original podcast. It was like back in 2010. And that we would do cold opens for the podcast. And I always found that very interesting. I liked the cold open. Initially, I was like, oh, it's weird that we're doing that. But this was before anybody knew anything about podcasts. So it was like whatever you did was fine because there was no template for this. And we would just turn the mics on as soon as we got in the room. And we would start like talking and we would just capture it. And then at some point we would produce it after the fact to kind of just jump in at a point where it made sense. And that was fun. I enjoyed doing that because you just never knew where it was. Like you had to like think about where the best natural spot to start it would be. But now everybody starts podcasts in the exact same way. You know, here we are.
Yeah, that's I like the cold open, but I will say that the cold open has I think it's the charm, the uniqueness is gone. A lot of people did that for a while, and now we're there used to be ones where it'd be like it felt like they started on the drive to the podcast studio. That was when it started, and you have to hear like 45 minutes of lead up until they actually got to the topic.
Yeah, I also think if there's only two of you, it doesn't work as well. Like if there's two of you, just open. Yeah. But like this podcast I did, it was either 3 or 4 people at a time. It had like FM radio show vibes, so it was just It made sense to do a cold open. It worked for all of us, but. I feel like I've listened to enough podcasts and heard enough openings. There's never a comfortable opening. There's just not. It's no.
I do think like while we're doing a podcast live, a cold open's a little different because it's like you just have to be part of our lives for a little while, right? Like unless you're just gonna watch me cook lunch or something.
Yeah, unless you pull like a Kramer from Seinfeld and just come like crashing through the door and into your chair, and like that's the closest you would get to a cold open on a live show, I suppose. And that would be.
I know how I'm starting the next solo episode.
I do think it'd be really funny if like you started this up and just disappeared off screen, like not tell me that you're doing it, and then pull the Kramer and just come flying in. Fall into your chair. I think the chances of you getting injured would be very high. So I mean, it'd be entertaining in one way or another.
We've done that on accident a couple times where I've had some technical issues, and then it's led to me like having to go do some diagnostic work. I think like last episode or 2 episodes ago, we did that on accident.
It's every time you've done it. Look, I'm going to give myself a lot of credit here. Every time you've disappeared on me unexpectedly, I've given a great monologue, and I don't even know like what I talked about. You
just blacked out, went into Walter Cronkite mode.
This is what I do on like Zoom work meetings all the time. It's like I got to fill 30 minutes somehow talking to you people. I'm gonna figure it out. I'm gonna talk, and we'll see what happens. And it's like what Michael Scott said on The Office once. It's like sometimes I just start talking and I don't even know. Like my mind's not even going. I don't even know what I'm saying.
Yeah. So we got comments early, which is nice. By the way, you can comment anywhere we're at. You can, and we'll put it on the screen. We're gonna next week try that other platform again that wasn't letting Twitter people comment. And if there's a problem, we're coming right back to StreamYard. But we got Henry Ginder starts out, and I'm sorry if it's not pronounced Ginder. Go M's. I'm on board with that. They have, since you said they weren't rolling, they've basically immediately started rolling again. They've been, I think they might have lost.
It's been an up and down roller. We'll talk about the Mariners obviously here in a little bit.
Sure.
There's some very, I would say, specific angles that matter to me, especially, probably to you too. But yeah, every time this is who the Mariners are. Every time you think they're rolling, they stop. And then they suck for a while, and then you're like, God, they really suck. And as soon as you like get real down about the Mariners, then they pick it right back up. I mean, they went to Baltimore, they kind of got it shoved up their butts 2 out of the 3 games, And you're feeling like there's no way. Because here's the problem with the Mariners. The problem with the Mariners is we keep hearing like, okay, yeah, maybe they don't beat the crap out of the baseball, right? But everybody always says, if once they get into a series, once they get into the playoffs, they're going to be unstoppable because of this pitching staff they have. Well, they go into Baltimore against the team that's one of the best hitting teams in baseball, and their pitching staff looks like absolute garbage. So, if that's representative of what a series would look like, it's not very good. But then they go straight from Baltimore to New York, and they win their first two games against the Yankees. So all of a sudden, they just have this way of pulling you back in right when you get real down about them. This is what they do.
Yeah, I think that the best way to win a series is to be good at both pitching and hitting. That's analytics for you. Is I want to address. By the way, we got some chats in here that we should get to real quick before we dig too deep into the Mariner stuff. This is Nick Lindsay, who has listened to probably he's here he says it's okay. Alex Casey is on podcast. What number? What 13? I've done a lot of podcasts. That's true. I have one called Nobody Likes Casey McLean because at some point I just realized that I was destined to ruin co-hosts, ruin my relationships with co-hosts.
I have to be your longest co-host at this point, right? Maybe not.
Yeah, I guess it's getting pretty close to that. It's getting very close to it at the very minimum. The Off-Speed podcast that I did, which you came on, I think we did like 85 episodes, so it's probably close to 2 years. So we're getting close. I will say one thing that's maybe helped your and my podcast relationship is taking enormous breaks when either of us had kids. Like,
yeah, we're doing this on our terms. If you want to follow along, that's on you. Like we're not. This is catharsis for us. And anyone who happens to listen, that's your choice.
Yeah. So Nick also says take shots when you start the show, which if you go back and watch some old episodes, we did a lot of drinking, and now we haven't drank on an episode in a long time unless you're secretly pounding vodka in your water bottle. It's not out of sobriety. Yes.
No one will ever know. It's a black water bottle, so how are you going to tell?
Yeah. Yeah, so anyways, we should get back to that. This is, by the way, you'll notice a photo and by the way, also we've had some internet. Tell me when it happens, Alex. If it happens,
it's already happened like 3 times. Yeah, it's like
God.
Your internet lag when it happens. It's like when you're on a Zoom work meeting. This happens to like one person on every Zoom call. It's always the same person, where they'll start talking and like 90% of the time, internet fine, no problem. They're coming through clear. And then it's just that thing where it lags and it stretches out your words to like painfully long. That happens. It's the reality of the medium on which we're doing things.
I'm taking out all variables and we're going back to the basics.
Yeah, that's fine. You do what you got to do over there. We have a lot of things to talk about today.
We do. We should stop talking about the internet.
We probably need to jump into sports right away. I know a lot of times we bullshit for far too long. But today we've got a number of topics. Let's break them down first, and then we'll get into them. But last week, as we are prone to do on this show, typically we will record, and then the very next day, something big happens that we would otherwise talk about. So we wait an additional 6 days to talk about it. Well, last week it was Scotty Scheffler getting arrested at his golf tournaments. And that was a pretty big story. So we got to talk about that. Luckily today, however, the police released video footage of his arrest. So we do have some developments here that became available to us just a few hours ago, which is nice. So there's that.
I'm sure tomorrow the police he'll get shot by the police or something, and it'll be an irrelevant story, whatever we talked about.
I mean, it was one of those stories. I mean, it happened so early in the morning that most of us, at least here on the West Coast, probably woke up to the story and were like, what? Like when I saw that Scotty Scheffler got arrested, you initially assume the worst. You're like, God, what did he do? Like, what kind of terrible thing did this guy do? You assume it's like some kind of crime that no one ever saw coming. So we'll talk about that. Like I said, we do have a lot of Mariner related things to talk about, just kind of the state of the Mariners in general. Some of the potential trades that are out there for them, I guess, is an important topic. They're going to have to make some moves. There's been a lot of rumors starting to murmur a little bit about what they could do, who they could go get, big names, small names. There's a lot of options there. So we'll talk about what's next for the Mariners, and also their current state, like some of the guys that they have playing really well right now, other guys who are maybe not playing as well. So we'll get into that. And then we've got a few other kind of like, I would say, maybe ancillary topics here, but Caitlin Clark remains a very, I guess, polarizing. I don't know. Like, what is Caitlin Clark? She was just in town in Seattle yesterday, and she plays for a team that is winless. So but the topic of Caitlin Clark and what she means to sports in general just won't go away. I would say more the off court discussion of who Caitlin Clark is and what she represents will never go away. It's like at this point. So we can touch on that. I want to talk a little bit about Anthony Edwards and kind of what is becoming his budding legacy as the Minnesota Timberwolves continue winning and keep going on through the playoffs. So we'll get to that. And then there might be some NFL stuff that we get to if we have time. And then, of course, our home run game to finish things up. So we got a lot here to work off of today.
Yeah. So what would you like to start with?
Oh, I didn't even mention the one I think we were gonna start with. Man,
let's do it.
Let's start with this one, the surprise topic that I just did not even reveal. It is Mariner related.
No.
Yeah, but this. Sorry, go ahead. Your internet lagged in the middle of the point you were making.
Oh my god! this is crazy because yours is also fucking up on my side. This is bad podcasting. How badly this is going internet wise.
It happens. I
wasn't even making a point. I wasn't making a point. I just said we had no tease on the on this Mariners topic. That's it.
Well, this was another one that came out. This is similar to the Scotty Scheffler thing, which obviously the Scotty Scheffler thing, much bigger topic overall. But around here, at least, this story came out like again a day after. It might have even come out the day that we did the show last week, and it immediately became a divisive topic among people around here. And also kind of like a punchline. I feel like it very well represents why people kind of make fun of Seattle and make fun of our baseball team and make fun of a lot of things about being from around here. But the Mariners announced a promotion, and the promotion is a gender reveal that fans get to do on field following a game on Father's Day. And I'm actually planning to go to the Father's Day game. My wife is taking me to the game with our child for Father's Day, which will be fun because, like,
sure,
I'd much rather go to a baseball game than do anything else on any sort of, I guess, quote unquote holiday. I'm not sticking around for the gender reveal. We have nothing to reveal. But the gender reveal gender reveals as a whole are divisive, and I'm curious to hear before I get into my point of view. I'm curious to hear where you stand on gender reveals. You've had a couple kids. Did you guys do a gender reveal?
Yeah, we did a gender reveal on the first one. I had no strong feelings about it. It's something that my wife wanted to do. I did not know that I was participating in the deepest of bigotry at the time. I'm pretty ambivalent to gender reveals, and as far as like the controversy around gender reveal, I understand not wanting to go to them from like a fun perspective. I had a joke briefly about how the gender reveal is like this party where you gather the most tired woman in the world and her husband, and then everybody drinks but them or her at the very minimum, hopefully. It's like everybody's having fun but the mom. I think that's like a little bit silly, but as far as like I don't have a lot of capacity personally to be like offended by them because that's part of the controversy in Seattle, right? Is like people are offended by the Mariners not adhering to like the most hyper progressive demands of their fan base.
Well, we can get into that. I think the initial reaction to the gender reveal promotion was just like silliness, right? Like,
sure.
This is for as far as we know, no other Major League Baseball team or major pro sports team has done something like this where you can come onto the field or come onto the court and do a gender reveal. So that in and of itself was funny. I'm curious to hear how you guys did your gender reveal, and then I'll tell you how I feel about gender.
Sure. So we went to a party. Someone set up a bunch of darts or balloons, and we threw darts at them. And then once we hit one that was not like just black sand that fell out of it, that's what it was. It wasn't. There wasn't like a lot of pyrotechnics, or we didn't hire like a skywriter or anything like that. I would have been fine with anything. Cut open a cake, whatever. It doesn't matter to me. Uh, I've seen a local sports personality talk about how a lot of times when you see gender reveal parties, you just see dads that are upset they're not having sons, which I did not want to be. What I was upset about is that my wife hit the dart. I wanted to keep throwing darts to prove that I could throw darts well enough. My wife got the actual gender dart. Um, but yeah, I don't know. I mean, I think they're like, I understand how if you're sensitive, how so there's two different things. I think they're kind of stupid parties. I also think that I'm not sensitive about them. I don't really care about the party in itself as far
So
as like
here's what I think. I think if you had never had a gender reveal, you would have jokes about gender reveals in your stand up. That's what I think. Because that's the type of dude you strike me as.
I will say
But
like
you got roped into one, so you can't make fun of it now.
no, I can still make fun of it. The concept of a gender reveal has become like, especially as like gender is a topic. It's like it's definitely the source of like a lot of edgy, hacky material. And I think there's a difference between edgy and hacky, but this is both. It's like trying to be, whatever. Like there's a joke. Oh, I don't think this guy listens to this podcast, but it's like if I pull my dick out is a joke that I remember from a comedian that probably does not tell that joke anymore. And how bad is my internet? I'm just gauging from your face. Is it going that badly?
It seems to hit at the worst times.
Okay.
In the middle, it's like if you botched every punchline in a stand-up show. It's kind of
Okay, this is what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna take every variable out. I'm gonna go get my old shitty webcam to make this work. And if that doesn't work, we got other problems. But I'm gonna go off screen. You can do your soliloquy about gender reveals for a moment, and we'll make it back.
This is perfect. I need no interruption for this because look, I think we all understand there are people out there that love gender reveals, and that's fine. I mean, if you have a kid and I've had a kid, if you have a kid and you want to do whatever you got to do to either find out about the gender and pass it on to other people or keep it to yourselves, wait until the moment arrives before you find out about it, whatever you got to do to feel comfortable in that moment, do it. For me, it's not my thing. And it wasn't my wife's thing. Neither one of us really wanted to do anything like that. We wanted to find out the gender ahead of time. We did. We kept it to ourselves, and that was just kind of what it was. After a while, we started telling people close to us. And part of the reason we told people close to us is because, like, when they have to start buying you things, you want the things that matter, right? Like, I don't want clothes. Like, if we're having a girl, we want clothes for a girl. If we're having a boy, we want clothes for a boy. That sort of thing. And again, like that was what was important to us, but I totally get if it's not anybody else's thing. The concept of a gender reveal as a promotion. Now I'm going to give the mayor some credit here because like this is going to work. They're going to sell tickets to this. They're going to sell more tickets for this than they would have if they just never had this promotion. And that's a real thing that they got to do. They got to fill the seats and they got to do it however they can. I'm kind of surprised. I mean, I understand why they would tie this promotion to Father's Day because, obviously it makes sense being fathers and all, but the Father's Day game typically tends to do pretty well from a ticket sale perspective as it is. So this gender reveal promotion isn't necessarily going to sell more tickets than they might have otherwise, but they're definitely going to get people to participate, and that's kind of what matters. Now, if you're the type of person like me who never wants to go to a gender reveal party ever in your life, then it's kind of nice that they're having this promotion, right? Like if these people get down on the field, the future mom and dad or mom and mom or dad and dad or whatever it might be, and participate in this gender reveal just themselves on the field without family and friends there, presumably, then or maybe they bring their family and friends down. I don't know. Either way, would you rather do a gender reveal party at a baseball game or at somebody's house and spend 3 hours there? Like, I'm good with the baseball game. So they're probably saving people some hassle by doing it this way, and I'm totally cool with that. What I do think is going to happen at this gender reveal promotion, now, my wife and I were looking at the rules about this and like how it was all going to work because we thought just in general it's kind of silly. But the way it works is that one partner takes these balls that are going to explode and either show blue or pink, depending on the gender. One partner tosses. I assume soft tosses. I don't think they're winding up and throwing a real pitch, but I assume soft tosses to the other partner who has to swing and hit the ball for it to explode to reveal the color of the gender. Now, if we know anything about Mariner fans as like a stereotype, like think about the stereotypical annoying Mariner fan that might go and participate in this gender reveal. There's going to be a lot of swings and misses. There are going to be a lot of pitches thrown. We need a pitch counter out there. They're probably going to eclipse like Brian Woo's pitch count in this entire promotion because there's not going to be a lot of 1-for-1s. There's not going to be a lot of people that get up there, do one toss, one hit, reveal the gender, and move along. There's going to be some people that get up there and they take 5 or 10 minutes trying to hit these balls. So I guess that part would be entertaining to watch. I might stick around a little later after the game after all, just to kind of see how badly this goes at different points. Cause I think it'll go smoothly for some people. And I think other people are going to fail miserably. And that part would be entertaining to see.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that'll be fun. We need a pitch clock. I want to see some spin rates.
Turn the pitch clock
exit
on.
Velocities. Yeah.
The pitch, that's a really good idea. Turn the pitch clock on. Look, whether you reveal this gender or not, you got 30 seconds. You got 30 seconds. If you don't hit the ball in those 30 seconds, your turn is up. We go to the next person. You just never reveal the gender. Everyone who showed up here, sorry, you're out of luck. You're going to have to go home and find out.
Doing open mic material here in the comments, by the way. We waited. Our gender reveal was at my daughter's birth, and 17 years later, we are still right. Oh, I see what he's saying. There's a. Can you imagine doing that? By the way, I don't know what it's not even like I needed to know our daughter's sex because it mattered to anything that we were gonna do. We have a whole bunch of like gender neutral clothes and stuff. It would have been fine. But it's like the anticipation would have killed me, and I have no like reason to not. I have no like. There's no tradition in my family, no religious reason or whatever to not find out. And yeah, man, I can't imagine waiting to find out.
Yeah, I'm the same way. I didn't want to wait to find out. We both were like, hey, as soon as the doctors know, we want to know. Like, no reason to hide it from us. I get why some people just love that build up or that anticipation to, find out later on. And I understand that, but it wasn't for us. It's more, to me, it's not about the reveal itself. Like finding out the gender of your child, do what you got to do whenever you got to do it. I'm totally for that. It's more about the fanfare around the reveal, right? Like we're taking something that should be so simple and turning it into a big ordeal is kind of what it is.
Yeah.
And that's why it's like, that's where it becomes silly. So in some ways it's like when this promotion was announced, a lot of people were just making fun of it because it's like typical Mariners baseball. Like here's a promotion to distract you from this team, which is not, to give the promotions and marketing team credit at the Mariners, like they can't worry about whether the team is winning or not. They have to market this team, whether they're good or bad. And and this is there are some things that they do that's really good. Like they've done this thing this year, Hot Dogs from Heaven, which has kind of caught on and gone somewhat viral on the internet, where they release hot dogs from little balloons up in the sky and they come down to the seats, free hot dogs. That's brilliant and it's funny. And there's a lot of great promotions, and they're not all going to be home runs, and that's just kind of the way it is. But for the people that participate in this thing, it's probably going to be a really cool moment. So I guess enjoy that part of it.
Yeah, to me, this is one of those situations that's like a classic. Like, I don't know why I would want to ruin someone else's good time, especially when I don't find them to be like this to be some incredibly insulting or controversial thing outside of like, yes. But by the way, this is Casey's gender reveal caused a forest fire from a few years back. My gender reveal was 37 years ago, Nick. I was, we weren't doing the big, no pyrotechnics, good by me. Nothing that's gonna fuck up the world, I'm good with. The stuff where you see people getting like silly string caught on fire and shot in their face, or where you've seen the dude. I think my favorite gender is when I saw. By the way, I want everyone to weigh in on whose internet's fucked up, because I'm getting it from you also, and I just have low self-esteem and I assume it's me. But everybody weigh in and say who's fucking up. It could be me. I'm not saying it's not me, But I'm having the problem also. Maybe we both are. Maybe do you have CenturyLink?
No, come on.
Oh, we gotta.
I'm not a peasant.
I have fucking gig speed internet. I'm telling you, it's. I have like I think literally the fastest residential internet you can get, and fucking still. Anyway, yeah, I don't. I mean, I will say like the my favorite one is the guy that takes the pitch. His lady like soft tosses him a ball and he takes the pitch, which is that's amazing. It's unfortunate but funny when like it'll be like a football and someone gets hit in the face by it or something like that.
Yeah,
those are great. But yeah, I don't want to attend one of these, but I'm glad. Is Linder just a person named Linda from Boston? I've never heard that first name before.
The best part about the comment that it's you is that in the middle of you reacting to it, your internet went bad. So
God damn it!
Perfect timing.
Here's my question, folks and Alex: is it bad enough that we should take a pause? We go off screen, put ourselves on hold for a minute. I reset my internet and come back.
It's not that bad because
Alex just doesn't want to restart the podcast. I
don't want to restart it. B, all it does is give me the opportunity to be the star. So
okay, well, it's gonna be frustrating to me at a point. So I might make an executive decision at some point. God damn it, Linder. Anyway,
I don't know what you were. I already forgot what you were getting at.
Yeah, this is what I'm saying. This it stinks.
That's okay. It's okay. Just power through. People tune in for me anyway. We know that. You're just a pretty face. You're just a pretty face.
That's what I've always said. So the Scotty Scheffler arrest has led to some kind of interesting stuff because there's like I think the Scotty Scheffler arrest and the Caitlin Clark thing have kind of dual. There's like overlapping hypocrisy in these two things where it's like the WNBA is becoming more popular than it's ever been, and they're mad that it's like a white lady. Jamel Hill, who I've said in the past I respect a lot, has said that it's because she's white and pretty. And I want to just say this. I don't want to talk about whether or not Caitlin Clark is or is not pretty. I don't think that's what this show is about. Although there would be shows that may argue that she is not pretty enough to, but I think
15 years ago, it would have. Do you remember the show Hot or Not? I think it was called Hot or Not. Yeah. Like 15 years ago, 20 years ago, it would strictly be a Hot or Not discussion.
Dude, in our, I mean, we literally live in the city. Fucking asked or made a bet with Sue Bird to spank her if she lost. Like this would have been a field day in Seattle and in like 1990s. Fucking everybody's piling onto me. Frank Castro, everyone now is shitting on my internet. This is now the new pastime of the Poor Sports podcast.
It's like being at a show where you get heckled. This is gonna happen.
Damn it! But it's also like not only do I get heckled, but everyone is like a couple minutes behind, so they keep rolling in waves. Like,
it's great. Do crowd work with these people. It's fine.
Oh yeah, that's good for everybody. And also like the Scotty Scheffler thing. There's a lot of like this is what it took for like white people to realize that and by the way, the Scotty Scheffler thing, it does look like the cops fucked up. And it is a thing that's like, yes, it sucks that it took literally in the same city, Breonna Taylor was murdered by the police and a lot of people. And by the way, I mean, there were like extenuating circumstances, et cetera, but it was a no-knock warrant where they went into the wrong house. It was her boyfriend shooting at people who, from his perspective, were entering the home illegally and they were in danger. And a really unfortunate and sad thing happened. And people are like, they're like, oh, this is what it takes for white people to like realize the cops aren't all good or whatever. And it's like, yeah, it is. And that sucks. But also if this leads to something good, or especially like the Caitlin Clark thing is a lot more cut and dry, which is if the WNBA gets more popular, it's good for all the players in the WNBA of all races. And to me, like you're like really just complaining that the move, like the script isn't perfect, as opposed to like celebrating a really monumental thing that's going on. And Scotty Scheffler, put him in prison forever. I don't care.
The Scottish, I didn't know we were going to like combine the two. I had no idea. I am ill prepared for this conversation.
For the analogy?
Where it had it. Yeah, well, also the serious tenor that it took, because to me the Scotty Scheffler thing is just hilarious. Like I said, when the story broke last Friday, for most of us out here on the West Coast, is something you are waking up to. You look at your phone, you're in bed doing the one eye and holding it above your head and hoping you don't drop it on your face, which I've done many
Sure.
times before. As these phones get bigger, it gets more and more dangerous to look at your phone in the morning.
And more painful when you drop it.
It's terrible. Yeah. Anyway, I'm looking at my phone and I'm like, the initial tweets about Scotty Scheffler's arrest were very vague. It was just like, he's been arrested. Here he is in a jumpsuit. And you're like, wow, what the hell happened? Like, he's supposed to be golfing today at a major tournament and he gets arrested. Like, you assume something really bad happened. Like he assaulted somebody, like really assaulted somebody, not like this charade, but like really assaulted somebody, or, because he is a very plain white bread white dude, which there's no way around it. That's who he is.
Sure.
Just listen to him talk. Usually when those guys get busted, it's something like weird and sexual, and you're like, God, I didn't know Scotty Scheffler was a pervert. But you assume the worst.
It's like DUI, or it's Eugene Robinson at the Super Bowl soliciting prostitution. Like, these are the two things that pop into your mind immediately.
Yeah, it's very, you assume very bad. And to find out that it was, I guess, what Scheffler deemed a misunderstanding, and based on the video evidence we've seen today, if you watch the video, it not only would I call it a misunderstanding, it's an incredible overreaction by the police officer. Scotty Scheffler moves his car about 10 feet, and this officer throws himself. The description that they gave, the police report said that this man threw himself on the hood of the car and was effectively dragged down the block by Scheffler. If you just read the description last Friday, you would have thought that Scheffler was going Fast and the Furious with this cop on the hood of his car like a movie stuntman, when in reality, Scheffler moved his car like 20 feet slowly, not fast at all. And this cop threw himself on the door. He didn't jump on the hood of the car. He just like threw his large body onto the car door for whatever reason, and then freaked out at Scheffler for what appeared to be no reason. So an extreme overreaction. And it doesn't, like, I saw a picture of the cop at some point in the last week. It doesn't help that he looks like Paul Blart. That certainly is not going to work in his favor. And just the memes, the punchlines, like everything, everybody had so much fun with this story. Maybe not Scotty Scheffler himself, but the cop is got to be living in like his worst nightmare now, because like it's the consequences of his own actions, but I mean, the way that the internet just dragged this guy after this.
I do think it's though, like, what people are kind of coming to grips with is it's the consequences of his own actions, that were it not Scotty Scheffler, probably there are no consequences for these actions, right? Like,
that's a really good point. Yeah. I mean, the thing about Scotty Scheffler, he doesn't look like a pro athlete. So when you see him, and he assumed it was probably just some dude that was going to the golf course, which, I mean, like, come on, man. Like, there's a major golf tournament here today.
Sure. This dude, I mean, in this guy's defense, he has to just assume every goofy looking white guy is a pro golfer.
But like, usually when these guys do bad shit, and we know they do bad shit, but when they do it, they usually do it under wraps, not in the context of a major event, right? Like, this is a major event. So the odds of you getting attention on this incident, very, very high.
Yeah.
Which is silly. I mean, the first thing I thought of, I posted this on Twitter, the first thing I thought of was the movie The Other Guys with Mark Wahlberg and Will Ferrell and some other people, which after I posted about this, my friends and I started talking about the merits of The Other Guys and whether it holds up as a comedy, and we all decided that it does. It's one of those comedies that, like, I feel like it bridges the gap between like the raunchy, inappropriate era that you really can't make those films anymore, and kind of the new kind of absurd comedy that works now, that a lot of comedy movies are.
Sure.
It kind of bridged that gap, and so it holds up. But in the movie, Mark Wahlberg shoots Derek Jeter at Yankee Stadium. Kind of by accident, kind of on purpose. Either way, he does it, and it's like a running punchline throughout the movie. And that's what this cop did. He effectively did what Mark Wahlberg did, and now he's going to get put on desk assignment. He'll never get to see the field again, which he probably shouldn't, based on what we saw from this video. I don't know. I don't know how. Like, I get it. Like, I think people understand that the cops can be bad sometimes, right? And
sure.
I don't know that this necessarily. I get the joke is that certain people never realized it until it happened to somebody that they care about and like in the form of Scotty Scheffler. But I
Sure.
think the reality is that no one gives a shit about Scotty Scheffler. Like he's still like if Tiger Woods is a different type of golfer, people care about Tiger Woods, right? But Scotty Scheffler is just some guy. I get that he's playing well right now.
No, he's not. No, he's not just some guy. He's like the number one golfer in the world.
I get he's the number one golfer.
He's on a Tiger-like run at this moment in the last couple of years.
If Scotty Scheffler like started sucking tomorrow, people wouldn't remember him. He'd be like, remember David Duval? David Duval was really good for a few years. People don't remember David Duval.
I mean, I think we could put listen, if we want to get into golf stats, I think we might lose every single listener that we've ever had to this podcast.
Yeah. My point is, like, people are like Scotty Scheffler is some sort of martyr now, and it's like, no, he's just.
I think you're just too old to know who the good golfers are now. I think this dude is actually very good.
No, I know he's good. I've watched him golf.
It's possible that golf is returning to pre-Tiger level of like stature in our society. Yeah. To some degree, because this guy is like having a run, like having a couple years that are like historically good. Like to say he's having a Mickelson, like we know Phil Mickelson, but Phil Mickelson's an asshole. We need Scotty Scheffler. Maybe Scotty Scheffler just needs to get arrested or make WWE entrances at every single event, and then we'll be back. We'll be on the Scotty Scheffler train.
Hey, there's something about having an edge, which that will like, this would be a perfect segue, but we're not going to talk about this right now. This would be a perfect segue to the Anthony Edwards conversation. But I think that's a real component of being a superstar. And so we'll talk about that in a minute. But
I like the segue to not the segue. That is the real good shit.
I just like to call out where it would have been a really good opportunity. So everybody knows that we have that in us, even if we're not pulling it off. We have it in us. It's there. So just know that we are capable.
All right. By the way, hold on. I want to say one more thing. Scotty Scheffler gets arrested, comes back, goes to jail, gets bailed out, and then comes back and shoots a 5 under, which is really takes away all the excuses for any of us. They're like, I got lower back pain. I didn't sleep very well last night. This motherfucker was in prison like 45 minutes ago and comes out and shoots a 5 under.
That was one of the good memes that I saw, is that Scotty Scheffler is basically like all of us now, showing up to the course with less than an hour to prepare and going out and having to golf with all the excuses at the ready if he needs them, but he didn't need them. You know, the thing about with Scheffler having to do all that, it's like for those of us who go out and get stuck behind a group that plays really slow or just like really takes their time, things like that, just remember Scotty Scheffler. This man raced from jail to go out and golf and do it, I would imagine, in a timely fashion. So we don't need to hold the game up. We can just, move pace of play.
Yeah. All right.
We got to talk about the Mariners. We have
Let's
to
talk about them.
It's our bread and butter. They're here. They're always here's the thing about the Mariners. They are always a good discussion topic because they're never good enough for people to just be like, take that for granted. And they're never bad enough that apathy sets in. They are like, if their goal really is to make money, they have found the sweet spot of just like constantly being in the news. Like they're enough of they're like Britney Spears right now, post conservatorship, like enough of a train wreck where you just can't stop talking about this person and you don't exactly know why.
Okay. In that analogy, I don't think Britney Spears is doing 54% of everything. She's either at 0 or 120% of whatever's
As far as
happening.
what we see, yes, that's true. The Mariners, the 54% thing, it's kind of uncanny how anytime you do a check of the standings, they're right around 54% this year. They are playing roughly 540 ball, and as we know, that's exactly what they want to do. But as we kind of alluded to at the start of the show, just as has been their MO, they've kind of had this run of winning series. They get their first, not their first, but a big test in going to Baltimore and playing the Orioles, who are just hitting the shit out of the ball this year. They're one of the best teams in baseball. Incredible offense. They do have some good pitchers as well, who the Mariners happened to see while they were there. Grayson Rodriguez is one of the best up-and-coming young pitchers in baseball for sure. And he shoved it. He shoved it against the Mariners. And they lose 2 out of 3 in Baltimore to the Orioles. And they lose, I would say, convincingly. It's not like they're playing their brand of ball where they're, doing these little low-scoring, close games. The Orioles, when they were swinging the bat, they put it on them against some of their best pitchers too. And so they're leaving Baltimore, heading to New York to play the Yankees. And most Mariner fans are feeling pretty bad about the state of things because the Yankees have a better record than the Orioles. You just watched the Orioles give it to you, and of course, what do the Mariners do in true Mariner fashion? They go into New York, they win 2 games against the Yankees to start the series, completely out of nowhere, and look great in the process. And then again, in true Mariner fashion, you're like, hey, they got a 4-game set in New York. They got the first 2. Now they're just playing with house money. They can drop the next 2 and they'll still get a split in this series, which a split in the Yankees series in New York was not something you could fathom after that Baltimore series. But now, of course, you're thinking, hey, we're playing with house money. Let's go win some more. Let's win this series. Let's get 3 out of 4, or even, like, God forbid, a sweep. And what do? They drop the last 2 of the series. Again, get it shoved. They get shut out today. They get shut out in a day game today, 5-0. And now we're kind of right back. I wouldn't say we're back to square one, but they took this trip that could have been incredibly positive after those first 2 in New York, and they kind of just made it what they do. Meh. They finished 3-4 on this road trip, or I guess they still have 3 games left in this road trip against the Nats, but they're 3-4 right now against these 2 good AL teams. They have to go play the Washington Nationals now, who are kind of one of those teams that are not very good on paper, but I could see them giving the Mariners trouble. And they continue to just be like, every time we think they're going well, they turn it around. And every time we think they're really sucking, they turn it around again. So they are a 54% team for sure.
I have a very hard time, and this is like, maybe I'm too rational on this, but I just have a very hard time getting like super invested in a short stretch of baseball, even a week being that stretch. Like, I think maybe the fan base of the Mariners, and good, by the way, the fan base needs to put pressure on the team. But as far as like the toxicity of the fan base on social media is like, I think they're like trying to be the same as the Seahawks, where every game is really make or break, and 54% is like, that's a non-playoff team, as it is in baseball. But the Mariners obviously have not been committed to being a playoff team on a regular basis over the last couple decades. Yeah, I guess, like, I mean, I'm just going to give you a couple that they have according to Fangraphs, a 64% chance of making the playoffs this year. And I would bet, if you go back, I'd be interested. I mean, I don't know if we can do it, or maybe we can using this Fangraphs tool, but I'd be interested to see how many seasons, this many games in, 51 games into the season over the last couple decades, they've been in that much of the driver's seat, because I bet it's not very many. And it's interesting to watch. I mean, like, you go on the road to the East Coast, play a couple quality teams, and you come out of that like 1 under 500 for those 2 series, right? That's better than the expected result, probably. But I just like the like day-to-day Stuart Little, sky is falling, or Chicken Little, not Stuart Little. Chicken Little, sky is falling stuff. I do not have any of that in me, and I think you have a little bit of it in you.
I do, to a degree. I mean, I think what you're saying about the fan base is true. My whole shtick online is to just make jokes about
I got it.
our teams, right? Like, and I do it with all of our teams.
Sure.
I do it when I do it for the Seahawks. The reaction is generally everybody's in on the joke and they think they get it, right? Like, everybody gets it. When I do it with the Mariners, always divisive. I would say the majority of people, if they follow me and they kind of understand the shtick, they're cool with the joke. But what always inevitably happens with any joke I make about the Mariners, people respond literally to it, and they're usually angry, right? They're usually angry, and it's very literal. It's like, doesn't matter what it is. It's just whatever the joke is, they always get fired up about it. And it's like, there are so many people that are just like angry with the Mariners, and I would say rightfully so, because when you've had 0 success over your entire franchise history, which that's basically where they're at. It just, no matter how old you are, your entire life has been filled with the Mariners sucking. Whether you're 5 or 85, like, your life has just been the Mariners being bad, and so that part sucks. Enough years of being beaten down will wear on you, and I think that's where it is. That's where we're at with the Mariners. But to your point, I mean, I agree that, like, they're in first place right now in their division, which should at least put them in the driver's seat for a playoff spot. But by contrast, I mean, I think they're capitalizing on the division being really down right now. I mean, the second place team in the division is under 500. If they were in the AL East, they would be in third place right now. If they were in the AL Central, they'd actually be in fourth place. Which when was the last time anybody said that about the Central? The Central is usually incredibly weak, and yet in both of these other divisions, they would be on the outside looking in of a playoff spot. This year, in the past couple of years, the AL West has been pretty strong to the point where they're usually getting a couple teams in just through the wild card. And this year, it kind of looks like if you don't win the AL West, you're probably not getting in the playoffs because the East and the Central have some pretty strong teams, and they're probably going to consume those wild card spots. The other thing, the Mariners, it feels like this is where it feels terrifying to me right now. The Astros are starting to play pretty good baseball. They're 7-3 in their last 10. They're really making a run here. Their guys are getting healthy.
Sure.
And we know that, for everything the Rangers did last year, winning it all. I mean, they won the World Series, but it's like it's already an afterthought. The Rangers have so many warts that even when they won the World Series last year, they did it just by pummeling people. Their pitching wasn't particularly great, but their offense was so good that it got them that championship. Well, this year, those same warts are resurfacing, but in an even more glaring fashion for the Rangers. So it almost feels like, in a way, the Rangers are kind of an afterthought. And as a Mariner fan, you are always terrified of the Astros. They've been a dynasty for a reason. It's like the Warriors or the Lakers in basketball. It's like, even though those teams have their down years, they're always a threat. They feel like they're always a threat. And it feels like the Astros are becoming that. They do come to Seattle next week to play the Mariners, so that'll be an interesting series. The Astros are on fire right now, and the Mariners are doing their usual shit. So it's like you just don't know what you're going to get out of the series or what to expect. But as the summer goes on, and especially as the Astros get healthier, I mean, this is the Mariners at more or less full strength as far as what they're going to have this year. The guys who are hurt are going to be gone all year, so you can write them off. We know Julio isn't performing the way you'd expect him to.
Sure.
And the expectation is he'll get better like he did in last year and the year before as the season wears on. And if that does occur, then, they're in good shape, right? Because theoretically, if the team improves with Julio, then as soon as he decides he's going to turn it on, then the team should win at an even better clip than they've done already. But with the pitching that they have and how great it's been, it feels like they should be better than this. And I think that's just what riles up a lot of fans, is that you look at the construction of this roster, you look at the fact that it's like, even if some of these guys in the lineup were just hitting 220 instead of 180, I understand batting average as a whole is kind of a stat we now dismiss a little bit, but
it's still the primary contributor to on-base percentage.
Yeah,
it's still the primary contributor to slugging percentage.
I'm with you on that for sure. The point is, some of these guys are hitting so terribly that it's like, if the Mariners could just hit a little bit,
sure,
this team would be, more than 3 games ahead in the division, which they are right now. And they're 3 games ahead of a team that's sub 500. So it's not like they're world beaters. They're getting by. And a lot of their getting by feels like they're doing it because the teams in their division are playing so terribly.
Yeah. Yeah, the Julio thing is interesting to me because this is kind of the profile he's had the whole time, where it's like a guy that strikes out a fair amount, doesn't walk a ton, hits for some power, but not like he's not like such an overpowering power. We talked about Joey Gallo in the home run game last week, a guy that's basically made his whole career off of having just unbeatable power, and of course it can go away. Like if he's not making contact, there's nothing there. I'm worried about Julio. I know it's getting a little bit of conversation now. I'm worried about Julio, and I think especially because the Mariners have so much invested in him for so long, which is a move that I praised, by the way. I think it was an incredibly smart move.
Yeah.
I'm worried about Julio long term. What I will say is we're starting to hear the earliest stages of blade rumors, and there's potential help out there for offense. Especially the Blue Jays are potentially looking to trade 2 young stars. One of those guys is a guy that you picked for AL MVP in our preseason predictions, who appears to not.
All of my picks are bad. If we went back and revisited,
yeah,
but the guy I picked for NL Rookie of the Year just went out for the entire season. So I
don't think he's getting it either.
I don't think he's getting it. Yeah.
So I like the idea of trading for a guy with Vlad Jr.'s profile. But what I will say is this dude has 1 year left before he's eligible to become a free agent. His arbitration number slash maybe he signed a contract, but I suspect it was an arbitration, was 19.9 million this year. He's been a pretty pedestrian hitter for the last couple years. Would he be a significant upgrade from Ty France? Absolutely. Would you eat the whatever remaining contract on him? Would I? Would the Mariners is a different question, but would I? I think it makes sense to do that. Would you do all that stuff and then have to? I mean, his salary is high enough. His final year of arbitration, it'll be even higher, very likely. His production has been low enough that I genuinely think if you trade for Vlad Jr., depending on what that arbitration number might look like, you could be non-tendering him in whatever amount of months until, like in this offseason. And that's, to me, like, that really limits what you're willing to. And Bichette has been just as kind of, I would say, like, as much of a letdown, although he plays a better position. The Mariners have a gift and a curse, which is they're getting nothing from their first base position, essentially. They're getting a below league average bat for all positions at the position that should be the number 1 or 2 best hitter on your team on average. So what they have is they can go out and find a league average first baseman. It's going to be a huge step up for the Mariners if they can find that. Yeah. The problem with that is they also don't have that guy, and they continue to not have that guy. And until you make that trade, you're putting a lot of green behind you, a lot of real estate behind you, where you're losing games you probably would have won if you had a better first baseman. So if you're going to make that trade, I would like to see them make that trade early. And I would like to see a trade that is not Vlad Guerrero. I know that's the easy trade to make. You're like a guy that was a very good hitter, huge prospect pedigree, has been okay still. He's not bad. He's still okay. He's still a pretty good hitter, but like about an average-ish first baseman, a little better than average first baseman, and a guy that can only play first base now. There's no illusion that he's playing another position. Probably is DH only at some point.
Vlad Guerrero came up as a shortstop through the Blue Jay system, which if you look at him now,
early, right?
How the hell did that happen? Just because he's so huge. And then there was a brief time, I believe he played some games at third base in the major leagues.
I want to say, I'm going to look it up. I bet most of his defensive innings in his rookie season, I would bet were at third base.
So the fact that he's a first baseman only now is sad.
Yeah, he played his first season. He played actually 100% of his defensive innings were at third base. 824 innings of really statistically terrible defense.
I would imagine it wasn't good because his range of motion is from one end of the buffet to the other. No, we should not be shaming this man. If anything, we should be.
He has my dream body.
Yeah, exactly. If this was back in the MySpace days where they had the body type line, my body type would be like Vlad Guerrero, but smaller, shorter,
less muscular. Vlad Guerrero,
less impressive in all facets. It is very interesting to me that the Blue Jays have become this source of trade rumor in the past few days, because especially in this era that they've had Vlad Jr., that they've had Bo Bichette, that they went out and got George Springer. They've been a perennial postseason contender. Sure. And I know that they've gotten off to a slow start this year. I think it's not so much that they've done poorly, which, I mean, they are in last place and 11 games out in the East, so that's not good. But it's more, they're 4 games under 500. So, if they were in the AL West, for example, they'd be right in the thick of things. But the AL East is so strong this year that I think that they understand, like, they're not going to contend this season. And the way that the Orioles are playing and the way that the Yankees always have the ability to reload, it's like they might not contend for years on end unless they take this opportunity to capitalize on some of the assets that they do have. The interesting thing about a guy like Vlad or even a guy like Bo Bichette, Springer's a little different because he's so much older and playing like crap right now. But with Vlad and Bichette especially, it feels like when Juan Soto became available from the Nationals a couple years ago, right? Like, it's a guy who is presumably young enough to still have not even reached his peak. Even though Vlad and Bichette have had down seasons this year and even going back into the last year, these are guys that, because of their age, they should still have more in the tank for years to come. And, another name that's been thrown out there as a potential trade target for the Mariners could be a guy like Pete Alonso. But the thing about Pete Alonso is, A, he's a little bit older. I think he's like 29 or 30. And B, he becomes a free agent after this season, and his agent is Scott Boras. So there's no way, like, if you're going out and getting a guy like Alonso, it's purely a rental, which theoretically should mean it doesn't cost a lot. It doesn't cost your best prospects. You're not going to trade Harry Ford to go get Pete Alonso because that's just going to be it's going to burn you for years to come because you're probably not re-signing Alonso. But with Vlad, the fact that he has a year and a half left on his contract at this point makes him very appealing. We've talked about this before. This is, again, when you're talking about real baseball and fantasy sports, it's so stupid. But because I'm in these very invested fantasy baseball leagues, I've known about Vlad Jr. since he was like 16 years old because he was my guy. I drafted him as a minor league prospect, and he's been on my team, all my teams ever since. So I've kind of watched the ebb and flow of his career. When you watch this guy play, though, I mean, the thing about Vlad is, and the Mariners don't have a lot of these guys right now. Julio is probably the one guy in their lineup who is that guy, but he's not playing like it at the moment. Vlad is a feared bat. When the Mariners play the Blue Jays and Vlad's coming up to bat with runners in scoring position, as a fan watching the game, you shit your pants a little bit because he just looks like a guy you should be afraid of. Even if he's only batting 270 on the year, which I think is about where he's at right now, which is still very good. Same thing can be said for Julio. Like, Julio's down. He's still batting 265. Like, that's not,
but
like,
with no power, especially with Julio with no power.
I agree. Like, the power numbers are bad, and that's things to be concerned about, and could speak to a larger trend for all we know. But still, I mean, if your down year is hitting 270, I mean, that's not the worst thing in the world, right? So Vlad still not only gives you relief in the present, but the future with him is still a really big deal.
Here's what I'll say about that. They only get 1 year of that future, and you're trusting the Mariners to develop or continue the development of a guy. And I just don't. To me, that's like, if you're trying to get a prospect and or trying to get a player, a trade target, and part of it is they might have some upside, I don't trust the Mariners to unlock that upside.
Yeah. The interesting thing about Vlad and Bichette both is they do not fit the Mariners dominate the zone theory at all. Like, if you get frustrated when Julio swings at pitches out of the zone, Vlad and Bichette are going to frustrate you probably even more than that.
Hey man, Vlad, I'll say this about Vlad. He's never had a season where he's struck out more than 20% of his plate appearances, which is pretty damn good for
He's a very
baseball.
good hitter. I think the biggest fear with Vlad, and this is the fear I've always had with him, is like, he's big. He's very big. And it feels like, if you remember, this is a long time ago now, but going back like 20 years, when the Marlins had Miguel Cabrera, there was this fear with Miguel Cabrera that he was going to balloon and basically eat away his career, right? He was going to get so big that he just wouldn't be able to recover from it, and it would waste his best years. And then he gets traded to Detroit, and he actually like works on his body and works on himself and becomes the future Hall of Famer that we know him as now. It feels like Vlad is getting to that tipping point where it's like, dude, are you like, here's the thing about Vlad. He swings so violently. Like, you watch his swing. It's kind of like a Julio swing where it's so freaking violent that you're like, if you keep getting bigger and swing like this, you're going to hurt yourself. Like, you're going to pull something, you're going to slip a disc. Like, your body, unless you're like Bartolo Colon and a complete freak of nature, no matter what size you're at, you're probably not going to be able to hold up playing the style of play that you have right now at the size that you're getting to, right? So the fear with Vlad, I think, is like his fitness. He's just not going to be able to maintain this production because his fitness is going to suffer, and then his performance will suffer. So, I mean, that's a reality. But, you know, it's kind of like when they went out and got Luis Castillo. Like, you think the Mariners are they typically don't go out and get rentals unless it's like a relief pitcher or something. So they're not going to invest a bunch of trade assets in a guy like Vlad or even Bichette unless they have some thought, I guess, that they can go out and re-sign these guys longer term than what their existing contract is. So I would think that, you know, they'll do their due diligence, and it just feels like as this season goes on, assuming the Blue Jays stay out of it, if you're the Blue Jays, you're not trying to trade these guys now. Unless somebody comes in and absolutely blows you away, you're waiting till you get closer to the deadline because their value is just going to increase. Even if Vlad and Bichette keep hitting like shit like they have been, their value just in their stature is going to continue to increase.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I don't want to see them give up a ton of the future for Vlad. I'm so worried about Vlad's short-term and long-term futures.
Here's the thing about the Mariners' future, though. You know, when you think about the guy, like the prospects that they'd like presumably be giving up, if you're giving up pitching, okay, like you're stocked with young arms at the major league level from as it is. Your starting rotation is pretty young. They're going to be there entrenched for a long time. So a lot of those pitching prospects are going to be valuable to somebody else. Or, I mean, maybe they slot in as bullpen arms for you, or you trade some of your major league guys and those guys fill in. But at least around baseball, the reputation with the Mariners is they know how to develop pitchers. So even if you're not even like on the top 100 prospect list as a Mariner pitcher, your pedigree among front offices in baseball is probably higher. And then when you think about the hitters, like the Harry Fords, Lazaro Montez, guys like that who could command a lot in a trade, like the Mariners haven't done a great job developing hitters. So what makes us think that Harry Ford is suddenly going to pop when he gets to the major leagues? Like you could say they developed Julio, but now we're expressing these concerns about Julio.
Sure.
They had Jared Kelenic. They couldn't develop Jared Kelenic. I mean, they haven't developed hitters. So if they haven't developed hitters, why not go get an established hitter that's going to make you get over that hump now and not.
Yeah, but it's an established hitter that's been sliding for 3 years. That's my concern with him. Even if Vlad had been it's funny, if he had been worse the last 3 years and he was he was just on a level and he was like a 125 WRC plus guy, 25% above a league average hitter, I'd feel a lot better about that than a guy who has a lot of physical reasons to believe he'll decline quickly, and a guy whose statistics show that he's declining quickly. Like that's worrisome to me. And the difference between a half year and a year and a half to me, I guess like the difference between Pete Alonso to me, who I'm a lot less worried about, maybe not for good reason, by the way. Maybe it's just not having put in as much research in preparation for this. But a guy that if he would cost significantly less, I'd be way more into the rental idea. I don't know what people are going to pay for these guys at this point, though. One thing I will say is, and I don't think the Mariners will do this, I think the Blue Jays are smart if they decide to sell early. Being first to market is very valuable in trades, is what it feels like to me. And it also feels that way to me for the people who are trading, whether it's the first to market acquiring players or giving them up. You get more time with that player, and you probably have to give up a little bit more, but you get more time with that player. And so if the Blue Jays decide to get rid of, if they know they're not going to bring these guys back after 2026, trading a year and a half of them is better. They're going to get more, or after 2025, they're going to get more for them than they would earlier. And if the Mariners know they're going to need to go acquire a bat, I do think if they think Vlad's the guy, doing it now would be good. I also don't think they're going to do anything but wait until, a couple days before the deadline and make a disappointing move. I mean, and I don't want to even get my hopes up for something that's big and splashy like trading for Vlad Jr.
Yeah, I joked about this a while back on Twitter, but the Mariners are going to go out. Like everyone wants them to upgrade first base. We get that. Ty France has underperformed for like 2 years now. But they're going to go out and acquire like a guy like Elihurst Montero from Colorado, who's just like a below league average first baseman. But he's 25 years old. He's a big dude. It's like the exact type of dude that the Mariners would identify as like an Abraham Toro, that like there's untapped potential here when there maybe isn't. And they're going to spin that as the answer. They're going to be like, we got the guy we always wanted. It's this guy who you've never heard of from a team that absolutely sucks. We gave up nothing to get him, and he's our answer. It's kind of like when they acquired Ty France in a way. It's like you didn't really know who he was. They were spinning him as this amazing ball player. The interesting thing about all those guys that the Mariners have gotten that kind of popped early on in their careers, it seems like they don't last, right? Like a guy like Ty France, because like I guess Munoz has turned into a pretty good player, but like even when you look back at that San Diego trade, that heist that they made with the Padres, as time has gone on, the heist nature of that trade has kind of faded. Munoz has become a standout closer. So I guess if that's all you got out of that deal, then it worked out. But like Trammell was a top 100 prospect who's gone now. He just could never become a major leaguer really. And France, while he started out hot, has just progressively declined ever since his start with the Mariners. And so
that's kind of my argument about the why you just like go get the keep all your good prospects and not go trade for these like very expensive, by the way. This in modern Major League Baseball, the next 2 years of Vlad Guerrero or the remaining contract and next year's salary, if he goes through the arbitration process, are probably going to still be like $40 million over those 2 years. The Mariners were not willing to spend that in the offseason. I do think there's The Vlad thing specifically, I think it's unrealistic to imagine the Mariners going and trading for Vlad Guerrero. But I also think like it doesn't really matter if you have a stable of major league ready pitchers because you're a couple Tommy Johns, which seem inevitable at this point in Major League Baseball. Like it feels like every pitcher at some point is going to have reconstructive elbow or shoulder surgery. And do they come back as effective or not? Are they purely just going to decline? I don't think you can have enough prospects, which is I understand it's also like an argument against keeping them is that a bunch of them are going to fail. But to me I like that the Mariners take lottery tickets on guys, but I agree with you. There's some of those guys that it feels like I've said this on this podcast before. It's like they want to be the person who knew the band before they got famous. They want to be they want to be the person that saw Dominique Canzone and was like, this is a guy, can't play the field, walks some. We think he can hit for some power. And then he does that for a little while and they look like geniuses. Was Jerry here when the Marco Gonzalez, Tyler O'Neill trade happened? Is that a Jerry DePoto?
Yeah.
So that trade is interesting to me because I feel like that's toggled. And the Mariners trade of Pineda and Hector, or Pineda and who was it?
That was before Jerry.
Yeah, I know that, but it had the similar like toggling between who won and lost that trade.
Montero was the other
yeah.
side.
And I think so. The Mariners got Hector Noesi back, and I think they gave someone else to the Yankees. But ultimately, the point is, eventually, I think the Yankees probably won. I think eventually the Cardinals won the Tyler O'Neill, Marco Gonzalez trade, but it toggled back and forth. On that day, I was fucking irate.
I was in the same boat. I thought that they lost that trade. I don't think the Cardinals won it. I think that it was probably kind of a draw. But now Tyler O'Neill is succeeding in Boston, so it's like I guess the jury's still out on Tyler O'Neill as a player, whereas the book is closed on Marco. You know what he is,
Sure.
You know what he was, and he's not even here anymore. So yeah. I mean, but that's every Jerry trade because it's the shuffling the deck chairs. It's like you're just moving equitable talent for equitable talent.
Sure.
But what they do so well is spin to the fan base that this is so much better than what you think, right? Like,
do you think they're effective at that anymore? Like, it seems to me like, especially this offseason and probably a little bit the offseason before, the fan base has reached the point where we're just like, fuck it. We're like, nobody's happy with the Mariners at this point. Nobody's happy with the front office at this point. And I've said it before. I don't think that Jerry DePoto is necessarily 100% to blame for this offseason, but I don't think this team is coming out of this mediocre stretch they've been in until they make a change in the front office.
Yeah, I mean, I think we're on the same page there. I think just they do a great job marketing every move that they make as more than it is.
Sure.
Time shows that it's really not a whole lot more than what it was on the surface. You know, a really good example is the whole Kendall Graveman for Abraham Toro debacle that then kind of spun into acquiring Diego Castillo, who was billed as the closer of the future and who is not even in Major League Baseball anymore.
Sure.
So it's like all of those things in a very small bubble, the moves that they make they get a spotlight put on them for whatever reason, even when they're like very small moves, and they divide the fan base and fan base eats its own. We just all go after each other about who's right and who's wrong. And then as time goes by, you ultimately find out that nobody won. Like the team still sucks. The players in both these trades basically balanced out as trades are supposed to do. And they were inconsequential. And that's the frustrating thing. It's like, if you were to go out and trade for a guy like a Vlad Guerrero, right? Like that is a consequential trade, regardless of how it turns out. If it totally blows up in your face because he sucks, or he never resigns with you, or he doesn't help you get to the playoffs or whatever, that's consequential. If he comes in and he plays like the Vlad Guerrero of, a few years ago and hits his prime based on his age and is an amazing player for your team for years to come, then that's consequential. The one thing you can be sure of with a trade like that, same as if they would have gone after Soto a few years ago when he was available, is it's a consequential move. And that's not a move that the Mariners often make, right? Most of these moves prove to be inconsequential, and that's what sucks about them.
Yeah. All right, let's move on we have two topics I want to talk about. I'm going to monopolize for a second just because I don't want to spend a ton of time on this. John Ross signed with the Eagles today, former Huskies star, a guy that got drafted 9th overall. and a guy who I will say, there's like, I had this feeling with Jake Locker too, where I was like, ooh, I'm glad he got drafted that high. I think he's a second round pick, but and John Ross as a guy that if you drafted him in the second round, or Jake Locker, if you drafted that guy in the second round, you're not upset with those guys' performance throughout their careers. You're like, John Ross maybe had a shorter career. He's still pretty young, which is amazing that he hasn't played since 2001. And what is he? He's got to be like 27 or 28 years old still.
Yeah.
But it just made me recall my feeling about John Ross, which is like the same feeling I had and continue to have about DK Metcalf, which is a guy that's got just like a really, really, really limited skill set. The lucky thing for DK Metcalf is he's 6'4", 235 with a 42-inch vertical leap and a great catch radius.
Yeah, John Ross is a speed guy. We know at the time at the combine, he set the record for fastest 40 time ever. It's since been broken, but it's fastest at the time. And everybody knows that as speed guys age, things don't usually work in their favor, unless Tyreek Hill seems to be a freak of nature that has kind of avoided the decline that a lot of speed receivers have. But, a better example is probably a guy like Deshaun Jackson. It seemed like every year he got a little bit worse. Yeah. And he still had a great career. But a guy like John Ross to be out of football for a couple of years and then try to make a comeback at this stage, if you're the Eagles, like, why not just see what you have there? I mean, anytime you have a former first round pick, especially a high first round pick, like it's worth the very minor investment to see what could happen there. And that's kind of where they're at. But yeah, overall, I mean, if you're a Husky fan, you of course wish the best for a guy like that. You hope he can like finally make something of his career. It seems like any time in the past when he started to get things going, he got injured, and that's just been the story of his entire career up to this point.
Yeah. Real quick, Nick Lindsay said who should replace DePoto. And I guess like I'm not as up on like who are the hot general manager candidates. I've always thought that Kim Ng should have gotten a better chance to be an MLB general manager, and that would be like high on my list. But I want someone who's like actually committed to analytics, who's actually committed to being cutting edge, and like you said, or to a degree you said, I want someone who is willing to come in and take big swings, calculated swings. But like you said, I want someone to make, the way you described it is, I think, really good, consequential decisions. This is either going to be a deciding factor in a Mariners championship or the reason the Mariners don't win a championship.
Yeah.
But it will be one of those two things.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, I think a lot of fans would say like, well, the counter to that would be like, well, Eric Bedard was a consequential decision.
Sure.
How did that go? But the difference with the Bedard thing is that you had a GM who was operating knowing that if he didn't go for it this season, he was out of a job. So he was operating with a gun to his head, basically. I want a GM to come in and make those.
I'll say this, by the way, I don't think I was right, but I praised that move at the time because it did seem like a team who was going for it. And that's like, I want to see I think I'm sick of this idea, and it's the Seahawks have really spoiled us. I want to win a fucking championship. That's all that matters at this point to me is like, I want to see, my, and this is like, not to bring the mood down, but my uncle died last year. One of the biggest Mariners fans I know, never got to see the Mariners win a championship. That sucks that this team is doing that to the fan base. You know,
if you have a good organization like the Seahawks are a great example because they're a great organization. They've taken big swings. They've hit on some.
Real quick. Nick Lindsay said, would Griffey be a good replacement? No.
I don't think so.
There might be former players. I don't know who the guys are, but I'd want someone who's analytics focused and not. I love Griffey so much. There's, by the way, there's going to be Griffey posters on these walls back here. That'll be what wallpapers this room eventually. And no, I do not want him to be the Mariners GM.
Yeah, I mean, you want somebody who can come in and make those consequential decisions, operating without pressure, like, hey, you're at the beginning of your tenure. Like, the thing about DePoto is he's been consistent. He's made a lot of inconsequential moves throughout his entire tenure. And just like he was in Los Angeles with the Angels, he's a guy that can help you rebuild from a very bad situation. I think that's like the way he's developed the farm system, the way they've really developed pitching. They can't seem to develop hitters, but they've developed pitching well. Like, he can do some things really well that will help you rebound from a bad situation but he doesn't seem to be the guy that gets you over the hump because he's either I mean, you could say like this is the great argument among fans. He's either hamstrung by ownership or he's hamstrung by his own unwillingness to make some of those moves. But either way, he's the guy. You can't fire the owner, so he's the guy that has to take the blame. And
Sure.
because previous GMs have had the freedom to go out and make those big moves, it seems like the capacity is there, and maybe this is more a GM thing. I mean, the way
well, I don't know if they've been. Isn't John Stanton? Isn't he?
yeah, but he's always been there. I mean, people
Sure, that's fair.
People want to say like, oh, John Stanton's only on the team for a short amount of time, but when Nintendo owned the team, John Stanton was just as much a part of that ownership group as anybody else. So he's been there. He's a consistency.
Sure. We gotta get going because I'm solo parenting tonight, and so you wanted to talk about Anthony Edwards, and I'm curious. That's all I got on the list. We just have Anthony Edwards.
We can skip it. We can push
no,
it.
No, I want to talk about Anthony Edwards. No, God damn it, Alex! I want to talk about Anthony Edwards.
Here's the thing.
He's interesting.
I got to go too. So we got to play the home run game. Let's tease Anthony Edwards for next week. I think it's a really good discussion because I think there's some interesting. We've talked a little bit about him in the past, but I think he's a larger discussion. So let's push that.
Do you think he's Michael Jordan's son? I left the comment off the screen, but earlier Nick Lindsay said that he might be Michael Jordan's son.
The reason I know that's such a big topic is because my wife was the one who brought my attention to it first. Yeah. She's like, "Did you hear about this?" And I was like, "No." And then she, a while back. So that's it's an interesting topic. I think we need to give it its proper due diligence. But I'm ready to play some home run game.
Okay. All right. You want to go first this time? You say that I have a guy, but I want to make sure that I have him queued up.
I got a guy too. I feel like this guy typifies our era more than any other guy. Like if you're talking like the 90s into the 2000s span, like an era we should like dominate. Like if this was a category on Jeopardy, we got to run the table. We got to get all the clues correct. If we don't get it, we're letting everybody down. We're letting society down. This is a guy. This is a guy that typifies that era. I don't even need to say too much about him, so I'm just going to throw the name out there and let you run with it. Torrey Hunter.
I feel like we did Torrey Hunter once already, but I don't know if we did. I'm sorry, folks, because
I don't think we did. I went through the same process you did. I don't think we did. I think we've talked a lot about Torrey Hunter in the past, but I don't think we did the Hunter. But it doesn't matter because I'm fully confident that even if we did, you have no clue what that number was.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. I'm gonna say Torrey Hunter had a long career too. I'm gonna bet Torrey Hunter. I'm gonna guess that he played like 17 years. With I think probably an early career season that's got like a real partial plate appearance, like so probably something like 14 full years, and a guy who always I think was billed as a power hitter and but mostly a defensive play, like a great defensive player, good enough hitter to really let the defense carry his stardom. He became a star because of his defense, which is kind of unique in today's game. I'm going to say he averaged he's probably in the 15 to 25 range of home runs most seasons. He plays 15 full-ish seasons. I don't think he had a ton of like super injury shortened seasons. So what, 15 times 15 is what? What does that equal? This is bad math, but it's like we're into like what, about 250, something like this. I'll put it on my actual calculator so we don't have to look like complete idiots, or me, I guess. Let's see, 15.
It's 225, I think.
Okay, so 220. Yeah, I feel like that's about the range that I think he's in. I'm gonna bet there's some seasons. Actually, I'm gonna just go directly with that. 225 is my guess.
Well, I am very glad that I picked Torrey Hunter.
God damn it. That's why I think we did it before, because I feel like this is full deja vu for
no
me.
way. This is you. I don't think we've done this one before. Well, first of all, let me tell you his 162 game average on home runs is 24. So
damn.
We're going like compliment.
I'm like out for the season at this point.
It's gonna be it's not gonna be
a tough one.
So he averages 24 home runs a year, and that's his 162 game average over the course of his career. Now, where the process really failed you is in the length of his career. You shorted him quite a few years. He plays 19 seasons.
Well, I said 17.
Well, you initially were at 14, and then you stuck with 15. So
I said 17 with a couple shorts, like 15
yeah.
full, and
Well, you kind of well, I guess you undercut him in two. You went 15 by 15, so you went 15 years by an average of 15 home runs. So that, yeah, I guess if you undercut one, the number's not going to be so bad. But if you undercut both the years and the average,
no, I fucked myself right in the ass. Yes.
So I mean, his first 2 seasons are just cups of coffee. He plays a single game in '97 and only 6 games in '98. But from that point forward, he basically plays every season close to full. I mean, he has 2 seasons where he had just 99 and 98 games. So he has a couple of seasons there that are a little bit abbreviated, but for the most part, he's playing full seasons. Starts off his career in Minnesota and plays there for quite a while, makes 2 All-Star games while in Minnesota. Goes to the Angels, where Mariner fans remember him, probably best of all. Makes the All-Star team twice in LA as an Angel as well. So 2009, 2010. So at that point, he's racked up 4 All-Star appearances, and then he does what a lot of guys do at the end of their career, kind of bounces around a little bit. So he goes to Detroit for 2 seasons, and then back to Minnesota for a season at the very end. But that his age 37 season in 2013 with the Tigers, he makes another All-Star game. So 5 All-Star appearances for this guy. If we've talked about the Hall of Very Good before, this guy's got to be a first ballot Hall of Very Good. Like, he's probably not making the Hall of Fame, but you kind of wish there was a spot for him in it, right? So with all of that said,
are you? I'm glad 225.
Yeah, you said 225, and I'm glad you're sitting down for this because the number is 353.
Oh my God, that's like literally I've fucked
100.
myself.
You missed by 128. Yeah, you give me a lot of room to fuck up.
Yeah, you can really fuck up today. God damn it, man! And it makes sense.
That's like an entire person's career. 128
home
runs. Yeah,
I know. Oh man, that's tough.
Man. Yeah, I got you good.
You did. Wow. Okay, mine for you that hopefully
I'm gonna fuck up worse than you now.
Hopefully, it's a guy you've never heard of. It's a man by the name of Chipper Jones.
Oh shit! Okay, wow. Chipper, he's another guy who had a long career because he comes up in 95 and he has his breakout season in 95. He might have come up in like 94 or 93. But the reason I remember his breakout season was 95 is because people were beside themselves that he did not win the Rookie of the Year, and instead it went to Hideo Nomo. And Hideo Nomo, he had a great rookie season in 95, but he's like 31 years old or something at the time, coming over from Japan. And really it was Nomo mania. The world fell in love with Nomo because we hadn't seen a Japanese player in years and years and years. And this guy comes over and he's an immediate star, and he's doing it in LA in a big market. And he wins the Rookie of the Year, and you can debate whether that was warranted or not over.
Real quickly before we get too far into this, how do you feel about the first year player who's been playing professional baseball in another country for years?
He's a rookie here. He's a rookie here. It's all the same. And if you feel like, because most people look at basically any other league, whether it's KBO or whether it's Japan or Mexico or wherever you're playing, they equate that to AAA or worse usually, right?
Yeah.
So it's like you're effectively getting a promotion out of the minor leagues into Major League Baseball. So if you have a good rookie year here, by all means, you deserve to win. Also, I'm half Japanese, so I was rooting for him.
You have to. You must.
I didn't give a shit about Chipper Jones.
It's always Japanese players, or it's historically been a lot of Japanese players because of the posting system there. So I can see where you'd have some. Well,
Nomo wins
a racial blind spot.
He set off like the Japanese influx.
For sure.
6 years later, that Ichiro comes over and wins Rookie of the Year too. Okay,
but he's not. Ichiro's not the next guy. Who is the dude, the fat toad in?
Hideki Arabu. Yeah, Hideki Arabu. There was a lot of pitchers. There was a lot of pitchers after Nomo. Shigetoshi.
Well, there was a big belief that you couldn't get There was a very racist. I will say that a very racist belief that you couldn't get a power hitter out of Japan, and obviously Ichiro came and was very successful, but was not a power hitter. He was a very finesse player.
Matsui kind of blew the roof off that.
Absolutely,
from a power perspective. Yeah, but okay, Chipper Jones. So he can breakout season in 95. So first full year, 95. He probably plays till 2012. He has a long career. So 17 years ish. But like most guys, I don't think he was that great at the end. He's a Hall of Famer though. So he's probably got a shit ton of dingers. Coming up in the 90s, that means he probably had a few 40 home run seasons or even more than a few, but he probably averaged 30-ish I mean, if you had 30-ish over 20 seasons, that would be 600 home runs. So I don't know that he was that high, but because he's a Hall of Famer and just like a surefire Hall of Famer, he's got to be in the 500 club, right? If he's not in the 500 club, there would have at least been some debate about his Hall of Fame candidacy. I would have to think. Man, I'm going to say 530.
Okay, so it's not as bad as me, but this is easily your worst performance to this point.
Yeah, year. I got cocky. It's like when a pitcher comes out with like a 7-run lead and he's like, I'm just going to pump fastballs over the middle. Who gives a shit?
So you said you had some things that were like so spot on that I was like, he's going to fucking sink this one. We're going to have a hole-in-one today. Yeah. So he comes up, his breakout season's 95. You're correct. He actually played his first games in 93, missed all of 94 with an injury. So literally you said came up in 93 or 94. He came up in 93, was technically probably on the Major League roster in 94, but didn't play. And then his 162 game average. Do you recall what you said his season average would be?
Around 30. I said like 30.
His 162 game average is 30 fucking home runs. I thought you were going to jar this one. And then you said over 500. I tried to not have my expression change. I was hoping you'd go in the high 560s. It was 468 home runs.
Okay. Yeah, he had less than what I thought. What did I say? 530? So I'm off by like 30,
62.
62. Yeah, that's definitely one of my worst performances.
Yeah, not as bad as mine still, but yes.
Yeah. Wait, you didn't say how long his career was. How
yeah, that's the other thing. His career lasted till 2012, which is the exact year you said. It was it was eerie what was happening. If anyone else is sitting at home watching this, they were like, well, Casey is fucked for the season because Alex is about to put this one within 3 feet. And
I basically went through the process and then abandoned it for the logic that if he was a first ballot Hall of Famer, he must have had 500 home runs.
Sure.
But, playing in Atlanta in the 90s was like, it's like playing in New York or LA now because you're on TBS Superstation. Everyone could watch you play. You were nationally broadcast. So everybody grew up knowing Chipper Jones, even if you weren't a Braves fan. So that's probably why he got in so easily. He should have hit 500 home runs, though. You couldn't add a couple more in there, Chipper. My God.
Come on, Chipper. All right, I'm going to, by the way, if you're a podcast listener and you missed part of this, I'm going to see if we have to re-upload it without.
No, it got good. It stabilized. I don't know. Whoever was downloading porn while stealing internet from you stopped, which is
yeah. We'll do some testing on this. We'll do some testing, Alex, on what's
go around the neighborhood, start knocking on doors.
I just got StreamYard on in my fucking car, driving around the neighborhood, trying to figure out where the leak comes from.
Your internet password should not be password, man. You guys tighten that.
Don't tell everybody, Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
By the way, Chipper has an MVP in 99, which is another.
Yeah.
He was great.
He was
only 140 plus home run season, which was surprising to me when I was going through.
That was another thing that I overread. I figured he'd be, coming up in the mid 90s, he must have had like 5 or 6 40 bomb seasons. But then I did get to the average, the 162 average. But
no, you nailed the average. This is actually very much like my Joey Gallo thing last year. Whereas if you just follow the process exactly like it was, I was very close. But what I did not take into account was that he just didn't play a ton, and Chipper actually was pretty healthy his whole career. I don't know what failed you. I mean, I guess he probably missed like a full season worth of games after coming up after 95.
He must have just not played enough 162 game seasons because if his 162 average was 30, and I was estimating 30 times however long I said the career was 17
You said 20,
years.
I think.
Yeah, so I said if it was 30 times 20, that'd be 600. So I had to take it down for next. So I was like,
sure.
20. Yeah, but either way, I explained the process last week. You follow the math, and then at the end, you let the gut take over. And usually that never fails me. But today
it failed you.
Today it did. I should never have abandoned the process.
All right. Casey McLean, comedy on everything but Twitter, where I'm the Casey McLean.
Alex SSN, that's me.
All right, thank you. What is going on here? God damn it. Just a well-oiled machine. All right, fuck us. Bye. What a way to end.